Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you're new around here, my name is Andy. I usually talk about sex education on this channel, so subscribe, you might learn something. I usually make videos every single week. I have been a bit kind of delayed with life over the last couple of weeks, so I'm not going to apologise because life is worth doing, but that's why there haven't been videos for the last couple of weeks. This week's video is all about what I thought I knew about sex when I was a teenager. It's about the myths and the misconceptions that I had and a lot of my friends had when we were at school, or maybe even up into university in some cases. They are things that we learn from like magazines, because it's kind of before the internet. It's not quite before the internet, but certainly before finding stuff out on the internet, right? Certainly from popular culture like movies and television programs late at night, and a lot of rumours. A lot of things which you heard around the school, the playground, just myths which have been brought up and people who, because they didn't know any better, believed them. Yes, because these are myths and misconceptions. Some of them obviously won't be true, but I'll give you some detail on what is the truth. So when I was a teenager especially, I used to think, and I got this idea from coming of age movies like American Pie and that kind of thing, you know. I thought you had to kind of persuade, trick, manipulate girls to going out with you or to having sex with you or whatever. They're only going to like you if you fool them into this. Now, obviously, that's not true. Some of you may know a film called Revenge of the Nerds. It's quite old, but it would have been shown on Channel 4 about 10 o'clock at night, so you know, nothing that racy, but it was basically about a bunch of university students in the States who they were nerds and they couldn't get the girls because that was the narrative at that time. So the only way that they could see girls naked or get them to have sex with them or whatever was to play tricks. So they rigged up some cameras, and I think one of the final scenes is somebody wears a Darth Vader costume of some description. So the head cheerleader would kiss him, and because she thinks that is the head football captain, right, person, yeah? Now, obviously that's not true. Obviously the way you get girls to like you is by being nice and asking them out. See, this was the trick. You never actually walked up to a girl and asked them out because you'd be scared of rejection and whatnot, but also because you didn't think that that was the way to do it. You thought you had to trick them. Clearly not true, right? Yeah. This leads in quite nicely actually into the next one, and they usually came from magazines. This it would be letters pages, and the question would be, how do I get a girl to like me? And the answer would be, oh, buy them flowers, make a grand gesture. It's like, no, that's definitely not going to work. Well, not definitely not going to work, but it's unlikely to work. It's definitely not a foolproof method. The fact of the matter is that you don't know if somebody that you fancy likes you back until you ask them. So the way to do it, of course, is to go and tell them that you like them and ask them if they like you back. All this seems very sensible advice, doesn't it? But of course, 15-year-old me didn't think this. So this is the point, yeah? It's a misconception. What I used to do was write like really sickly love letters and notes, right? Not actually often then give them to the person that I fancied. I just write them and then throw them away. I was useless when I was 15 years old, I tell you that. One thing I got from movies and some television programs quite a lot is if you asked a significant other, the person that you like, enough times that you want to go out with them, they will eventually say yes. Not only is this an awful technique, it's almost harassment in some cases, right? It's also simply not true. If you ask them and they say no, especially if they say no very nicely, you probably shouldn't ask them again unless for some reason they obviously change their mind and start paying more affection and attention to you, yeah? And it's not easy, especially when you're 15. I should know. I had a very, very long crush on one girl, and I think I asked them nearly a dozen times to go out with me. Through various crap methods, by the way. I think I asked them directly once and very discreetly another 11 times. And she said no every single time. Why didn't I get the message? At least after the second time, yeah? Why didn't I get the message? I know it's not easy to get over somebody, but honestly, if they say no, they probably mean it. A good example of this, and why it teaches people that if they ask a lot, it might actually happen, right? Is that in the Big Bang Theory, Leonard and Penny. So Leonard's like the lead-ish male in the thing, and Penny's the only woman that leads, at least in the cast, right? Now, Leonard and Penny are going out, they're in a relationship, but Leonard asked Penny a good half a dozen times to marry her. Of course, every single time, Penny says no. Now, the story is commitment issues and that kind of thing, and eventually they work out that Penny has to ask Leonard to marry, meaning that Leonard is banned from asking. But of course, it still kind of reinforces this idea that if you ask enough times, they'll say yes. It's not the case. It happens more often in TV and movies than it does in real life, by some considerable distance. One thing I heard a lot when I was at school was that if you peed after sex, especially if the woman pees after sex, of course, then it kills the sperm. No. Obviously not. But what it can do is prevent UTIs. So, absolutely pee after sex, but it does not prevent you getting pregnant at all. One thing you hear a lot in magazines, rumours, in movies, everything, right, is that the first time you have sex, it hurts, especially for people who own vaginas. Well, actually, it shouldn't. It might be a bit discomforting, especially the first 10, 15 seconds or so, maybe quite discomforting indeed. But it shouldn't actually cause pain. It shouldn't hurt. If it does, then you probably need to go and see your doctor, because it's a sign that something else is wrong. There's nothing to worry about. It's completely normal. But it's something to see your doctor about, and they can provide treatments. And now one thing I do suggest you use is lube. It's great. Obviously reduces friction, means if there is any pain, there'll be less of it, and it's a lot more fun. So now this one, I saw it in movies and rumours of it as well. It was if you use 2 condoms, it's better than 1, because things like it desensitises you, it makes you last longer, so on and so forth. Well, firstly, no, it doesn't. And secondly, it can actually be not a good idea, it kind of really bad, because it's more likely that the condoms will split because there's more friction between the condoms, more heat is built up, more potentially more irritation for both the person with the penis and whatever it's been inserted into. And apart from everything else, it's a complete waste of condoms. Why would you make a product like a condom when you would have to use 2 of them to make it effective? 1 condom is plenty good enough, especially if you're in the UK. It's got the little kite mark on. It's British standard condoms, yeah? And yet again, consider lube. Makes things better. Probably makes you last longer because there's less friction. It's great. Use it more. And last, certainly not least, there was the rumour that, especially among the boys, well, particularly among the boys, almost exclusively among the boys, was that girls don't masturbate. That's not true. They just don't talk about it as much as the boys. There's been plenty of research actually to show that girls are much more likely to explore themselves than boys. At least when I was at school, there was a lot of stigma around masturbation. People were being called wankers all the time in a derogatory manner. It's like, you're a wanker. And everybody knew what they meant. Of course, what they didn't tell you was that the person calling you a wanker definitely did some wanking themselves. So what myths did you have when you were a teenager? Leave them in the comments below and maybe tell us why they were myths and what the actual truth is. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, then give it a thumbs up. You can do that just down below. Don't forget to subscribe and click the little bell so you know when I upload next. And I shall see you next time. Bye-bye.